Well, I imagine we're going to have unlocked a new level of fatigue. Of course, hashtag not all, but now we have President Trump weighing in and dropping the ever loved by leftist media rags youths to describe a large feral group of, well, we don't know yet, but I think it's safe to assume if I'm looking at a group of 8 to 10 people carjacking a woman in Washington, D.C., I'm going to go ahead and assume they aren't Amish, but we don't know yet, so I won't say. But turns out, remember the DOGE guy who went by the name Big Balls? Well, he intervened and stopped this woman from being attacked and was severely hurt. I don't know if there's any Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe's going for him. If there is, I will update people on that. But let's look at the story. I'm going to be streaming about this too. By the way, thanks everyone who's followed the new live stream channel. If you just search, if you're a YouTube only viewer, search up Quartering Live. I'm live Monday through Friday at 2 Eastern, 1 Eastern on Fridays. Tomorrow is Luke Rodowski, Hannah Claire Brimlow. Thursday, we have a special guest coming on. So please do subscribe to that channel. Let's go right to the news. Breaking, Ed Korestein, a.k.a. Big Balls, was the Doge hero that saved a woman from being attacked in her car. Multiple sources confirm Big Balls lives up to his name here. Multiple teens surrounded the woman's car, attempted to carjack her. Big Balls stepped in to save her. First of all, is it even worth it anymore? Our cities are lost. Our cities are completely lost. Elon wrote, a few days ago, a gang of about a dozen young men, tried to attack a woman in her car at night in D.C. A DOGE team member saw what was happening, ran to defend her, and was severely hurt to the point of concussion, but he saved her. It's time to federalize D.C. The thing is, I've only been to D.C. once when I went to Timcast and I flew into D.C. It looks like an absolute dump. I assume there are lots of good people that live in the DC area, and I assume that it suffers from basically the exact same problems any major Democrat-run city. But here's Donald Trump. Crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths, he's about one step away from future scientists and 2 steps away from basketball Americans at this point, because the fatigue is getting out of control. Let's be honest. The people that did this were young and black. Guaranteed. Or migrants. It could be migrants, which means they could be some form of black or brown, but they weren't white people. This isn't to say white people don't commit crime. They do. This isn't to say white people don't commit carjackings. They do. But when you tell me there is a large group of youths carjacking somebody in a major metropolitan city, it's black people. Okay? Some 14, 15, and 16 years old are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and taking innocent lives at the same time knowing that they will be almost immediately released. They are not afraid of law enforcement because they know nothing ever happens to them, but it's going to happen now. The law in DC must be changed to prosecute these, quote, minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at age 14. The most recent victim was beaten mercilessly by local thugs. Washington, D.C. must be safe, clean, and beautiful for all Americans, and importantly, for the world to see. If D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run the city how it should be run and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it. Now, look, I'm on record saying I want them to take over every major city and get these activist judges out and protect the citizens. Because most of the people that live in these big cities are essentially held hostage in them. They can't go out at night. They can't leave their car doors locked. They have to open their car doors and leave their windows open because just Democrat mayors say, well, it's just a problem. It's a normal thing you deal with living in the city. I don't deal with that. Now, I don't live in San Francisco, but I can tell you what, if there were people randomly going around breaking into cars where I live, they wouldn't make it very long. And this is true of many cities. So why do we give these major metros and, of course, these drug-addled Democrat cities? And by the way, when you're talking about like San Francisco, this is a problem for an addiction problem that affects. Addiction doesn't care about your skin color at all. when we're talking about, you know, these smash and grabs and all this stuff, well, that's generally pretty obvious who's going to do it. He continues, and perhaps it should have been done a long time ago, and this incredible young man and so many others would not have to go through the horrors of these crimes. If this continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize this city, make America great again. Elon Musk joining in and saying, a few days ago, a gang of a dozen young men tried to attack a woman in her car. DOGE, it's time to federalize DC. This is absolutely crazy. This is crazy. And look what they did to this kid. Looks like he's got some teeth missing. He's got, I mean, I don't care how big or small you are, you know, a 1v8, for the most part, you're not walking away from that. It's extreme, you know, and these are, you know, I don't think Big Balls was forged in the fires of Mount Doom. I assume he's a Silicon Valley autist, but still extremely brave. You see here, you know, Ed, known as Big Balls from DOGE, heroically intervened to save a woman from an attack, 8 attackers in Washington, D.C. This is crazy. And, you know, we have 0 arrests, by the way, as of right now. I want all 8 of these or 9 of these people arrested. You know, this is, again, just another law-abiding citizen who, now, he did intervene. Okay, he did intervene. So obviously that gives them all the reason they want to try and take his life. You know, a dozen black men trying to attack a young woman alone in her car late at night. Big Ball stepped in to get them to stop. So naturally, the pack of men attacked him too, because of course they did. In other words, just another night in a modern city of America. This is, I mean, here's Senator Mike Lee calls for the President Trump to give Doge's Big Balls the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his heroic act. That's Huck. Let's make sure this kid's okay. You know, let's make sure this kid's okay before let's worry about that. I hasten to, let's go with DOGE. I want to see if any mainstream media has bothered to cover this. One like on this video is one get well soon. Here, Elon Musk backs Trump's latest threat. Billionaire Elon Musk on Tuesday said it's time to federalize DC after President Trump suggested the same while spotlighting a recent crime in Washington that allegedly involved a member of DOGE. Newsweek had reached out to DC Mayor Muriel Bowser. Why are all these women mayors in Democrat cities? Enough of that. And by the way, let me just take a guess. What a shock. What a shock. A DEI mayor. Congratulations. These people, they pretend to care about the black community to get their votes, and then they don't do a diddly dick to keep their community safe. By the way, black communities are the ones that need the protection more than anybody. They also, you think they would want some level of action as well. The comments come in the administration debates how far it can go to exert control over cities. Bro, if I'm living in DC, I'm like, yes, please. Please, it would be nice to be able to park my car on the street and not assume it's going to get broken into. Yes, please, it would be nice to stop at a red light and not assume I'm going to be carjacked. Yes, please, it would be nice to, be able to, not sleep with weapons under my pillow every night. I mean, DC, look at their stats, okay? Aggressive crimes in the nation's capital fell 35% in 2024, reaching its lowest level in more than 30 years. Now, again, this is like being the smartest kid on the short bus. According to the attorney's office, taking of lives dropped 32%, but this is all post lockdowns when crime was at an all-time high. Social media loser Brian Krassenstein says, Trump claims he will federalize DC because of rising crime rate. Fact. Over the past 15 years, Washington, D.C.'s crime rate has significantly declined. Well, Mr. Krassenstein, you loser, I would invite you to move there. In fact, let's just, if you're watching this video later, let's find this. Let's see, Krassenstein. Let's see. Let's just say, why don't you move there? I think that's a pretty good question, right? Curious. Why haven't you moved there if it's so safe? You know, this is wild to me that people continue to excuse this behavior. It's because they don't want to be called racist. Look, the fact of the matter is, obviously, not all black people are committing these terrible, terrible crimes. And obviously, people of all skin colors commit a whole variety of crimes. Why is that a controversial thing to say? You know, I would argue that there's probably disproportionate number of white meth dealers, just like there's probably disproportionate number of black crack dealers. When we're talking about these roaming gangs of youths, okay, this is black youths. That's a fact. I'm not saying all black people. I'm just saying that's who's committing these crimes. And it's because of this soft on crime Democrat nonsense where they feel like, I'm just going to get a slap on the wrist anyway. They were probably trying to just take the car for a joyride when they should have been getting ready for school. I hope you enjoyed or were informed by this video. We'll follow up with any new details in the morning. Make sure you subscribe or follow down below. And don't forget to go follow Quartering Live if you're a YouTube-only viewer. Help me reach 10K subscribers, and we'll talk to you again real soon.